Do you have slow Excel files? When data grows, file size grows, it takes a long time to open. Everything you do inside it is very slow. And even pivot table, you drag and drop something and wait endlessly. If this happens to you, then watch this video. The solution in one sentence is to use data model. So let's see what that is. First of all, let's see if you have data model. You should see a menu or a tab called Power Pivot and a green button called Data Model Manage. Also in Data tab, you will see the same green button. So if you see the green button, click on it, then it'll ask you to enable an add-in, and then you will see Power Pivot. If you don't see it, look at the description. Some other actions may be required. Now, what is the benefit of this? Well, it can import millions of rows of data. It reduces the file size and improves the performance dramatically. So let's see this in action. Traditionally, we have been importing data into Excel sheet. We don't want to do that. We want to put it in this thing called data model. Question is, how do you do that? And the answer is Power Query. So Power Query means what? Data tab, get and transform data. If you don't see it, again you have to follow instructions which are in the description. Now having done that, let's import some data into data model directly. This is the data called transactions 2022. So I'm going to close this file. This is a blank new file. I go to data, get data from file, from Excel. I'll choose that particular file. Now it will show me what is there in the file. Right now only one sheet, one table. Always import tables, never sheet. Let's assume it is clean. We just want to load it. But wait, do not click on the load button. You want to open this drop down and say load to. That is how you decide whether to put it in Excel sheet or you put it in data model. Default may be table. Table means Excel sheet. We do not want that. So you say here, I just want a connection, and then this gets inactive. But now you can say add it directly to data model. That's all. Now click OK. Now it loaded those 27 rows. Now where is the data? The Excel sheet is empty. That's because the data has gone into data model. So go to Power Pivot, click on this green button, Manage Data Model. A separate window opens, and this is called Power Pivot window. This does show you the same data. Here the data is read only. Yes, you can add calculated columns, but you cannot change the data. If you want to change the data, go to the original file, change it, save it, and then refresh. So I'm going to import another table which gives me the name of the product from the product ID. It's a sort of product master. So now we have transactions and products. Both of them are a part of data model, as you can see here. Now the extra thing you can do here is go to diagram view and tell Excel that these two things are related. So one product has one product ID, and that same product may be sold multiple times in transactions. So just drag and drop. Which direction you drag drop doesn't matter. And now it's done. This is called creating a relationship. And now that we have this, that's how it is done. We have an empty Excel sheet, no problem. But now you can go to pivot table and say create a pivot table from data model, because there's nothing in the Excel sheet anyway. It is going to create a standard pivot table, but it is different because it's showing multiple tables. So now I can create a pivot table exactly the way I do. For example, I want total amount, but I don't want product ID. I want the product name, which will come from the product table. We can also create calculations here. For example, I have target sales. Now I also want to put the target sales here. So for some products we have sales, for some product you don't have sales, and I want the difference between actual and target. So this minus this. This could not have been done in a traditional pivot table with calculated columns. Then you have to struggle by adding formulas outside. Here you can do this very easily. We are actually creating sort of a calculated column or a measure. How do you do that? You go to Power Pivot and say measure, new measure. Now, of course, this is a variance or difference between the two. So I'll just call it variance. Now we have to put a formula. This looks like Excel, but these formulas are different. They use a separate set of functions. They are called DAX functions. But never mind. In this case, we just want this minus that. So we are going to take sum of actuals, and there is a similar sum function. Now it is going to show me all the table names and column names. So I want sum of transaction amount minus sum of what? Target sales. But from where? Now I need to give the name of the table, and that table name was product, and in product we have target sales. Now when you type a formula here, you should check the formula. No errors. It's not going to show the results here. The results will come later. But look at what happens to this new thing we created called variance. This will get added here and it'll have an fx to show you that it's like a measure. You can actually see what has happened. Of course, where there is nothing, it's complete variance, and then some products have exceeded the target, some products have not. So that's how this works. If you have large amount of data and it's likely to go more than 1 million, then Excel sheet doesn't work at all and it is sluggish even with 500,000 data. So that is what we can do now. So I'm going to open another data model which is already having lots of data and then see how it helps us. Go to the data model or Power Pivot window. You will see there are lots of tables. These could have come from different sources. So maybe this one, just 4 rows, came from an Excel file. This one came from another CSV file. And this one has only 400. Product table has 2500 rows. But the sales table is very big and it has almost 4 million rows. All this is happening, and actually the file size of this Excel is just 40 MB. But the real crux is, when I analyze this data, is the pivot table performance good? I'm going to create a pivot table, insert pivot table from data model. Now you will see lots of tables here, which is fine. And now I want the main table to be utilized, the sales table. And in this table, you will see there is something called total sales. Now if I drag and drop this, what is it going to do? It's going to calculate the total sales by going through 4 million rows, and it's almost instantaneous. But that should not be very impressive because it was just one calculation, and Excel is obviously very good at calculations. What we want is a much more complex pivot table. So let's create that. So let's see how many rows this pivot table has. Oh, 1300 rows. Now let's see how many columns it has. I don't know what PI means. So let's use the column function to find out how many columns are these. 425. Okay. So now when I drag drop something in the data area in the pivot table, what does it have to do? For every row and every column, it has to calculate. So how many calculations does it have to do? So that's more than 500,000 calculations it has to do. Fill up the pivot table, and for each calculation, it has to go through 4 million rows. So now we can see the real performance. I'm going to zoom out because it's going to be a large pivot table. And now let's add the sales. And now let's add the total sales. And to make it more interesting, I've also started a stopwatch. So now I'm going to drag total sales, drop it into values, and almost instantly it has done it. And you want to make it even more complicated? Let's ask it to calculate something based on this, which will require even more calculations. So I'm showing as column percentage. No problem. It's almost instantaneous. So that is the benefit of data model. Now sometimes what happens, we have already got our data model, we have got data from multiple sources, but in this file I also have some related small table. This table doesn't change very often. In that case, from this Excel, this table is already in this Excel file and I want to add it in data model. You can also do that. So go to Power Pivot and say add to data model. Add what? The table which is currently in selection. You don't have to select the table, just stay inside that table somewhere. And now when you do that and go to data model, even that table will be added. Don't do it for large tables or those which are going to change frequently. Small lookup tables, this is done. Now Power Query can be used for data cleanup, and I have a separate set of videos. In fact, I have a playlist for that. Go and look at it. It's going to save you enormous amount of time. By the way, when you import data into data model, apart from creating relationships, you can also do other things. These are called shaping. I have a separate video on that. Have a look at it. So to summarize, what are we talking about? You import data into data model. You solve the large, slow Excel files problem. You can import millions of rows into it and get small file size, and lightning fast performance. On top of it, if you use the DAX functions, you can get enormous and extremely efficient functions and formulas which are uncomparable to what struggle we do in Excel. But that is a topic for another video. By the way, all these files and the links to them are available in the description as well, so you can actually try it out. That's all for now. See you next time. Enjoy.